science. Did the movie get it right? Bad science. Or will we have to fight? Bad science.
Hey, all you astronauts turned corn farmers turned astronauts again. Boy, do we have a show for you. It's the instant classic Interstellar, which features a mesmerizing visualization of a black hole's event horizon. Fun fact, scientists snapped a picture of a black hole last year, and they should be done compiling the data in the next few months. Supposedly, it's going to be some huge scientific breakthrough, but I just don't see it. Like, literally, I don't think that we'll see anything. It's a black hole. You're taking a picture of a hole that is filled with black. Hopefully, I'm wrong. I mean, I'm usually wrong. But anyways, let's dive into Interstellar, the only movie where everybody else gets much, much older and Matthew McConaughey stays the same age.
Bad science. Did the movie get it right? Bad science. Or will we have to fight? Bad science.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bad Science. I am your host, Ethan Edinburgh. I am super excited today to be talking about Interstellar with one of my favorite comics. Dan Levy is here.
Yes, I'm here.
It's unbelievable that you're here. Got a little lost.
I got lost.
But?
Well, no, because it said park at the hotel and then walk over. And then I started walking to a place that I thought this place used to be.
Right.
So it was actually completely on me.
Okay, fair enough. Not our fault. You're a writer on the Goldbergs, and you have a wonderful special called Lion on Amazon.
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
So we covered all of our bases here.
That's all you need to know about me.
Okay.
And also,
Yeah.
well, I'll wait to talk about the problem with the podcast.
Yeah. Let's at least have a smooth intro, and then we'll talk about all of our issues.
Okay, yeah.
We also have Varoujan Gorjian. Did I say that correctly?
Close enough. Varoujan Gorjian.
Varoujan Gorjian.
Varoujan. My wife Allison came up with this way of saying you put your rouge on, and it's Varoujan.
Varoujan.
Yeah. Varoujan.
Got it.
I like
Okay.
it. Varoujan, is this your first comedy podcast?
Yes, it is my first comedy podcast.
Welcome.
Wow, welcome. Well, it's also an educational podcast.
Those I've done before.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, educational podcast,
Yes.
but your first comedy-related podcast.
Yes, it is my first comedy-related podcast.
Are there a lot of scientists in the scientist community who text you and be like, "Hey, could you come on my podcast?"
Yeah.
There are various people that do have podcasts that have asked me to be on. Yes, there's several of them now.
Oh, wow.
A lot younger than I am, so not quite my generation, but
Yeah.
the following generations are much more in tune with this.
So the science industry is just as annoying as the comedy industry.
Good to know.
Good to know.
Good to know. Okay, so today we are talking about Interstellar, a movie that I gotta say, upon my research, has overwhelmed me. Some movies we've talked about. Pacific Rim, we've talked about Harry and the Hendersons, we've talked about these movies that are like very simple as far as science is concerned, and then there's this which feels like a behemoth that I could spend 9 episodes on.
It's as a non-scientist, I used to say when we were emailing about a lot of things. You're a great comedy show, the podcast, some other stuff, and I just missed some emails because I sent a bunch of movie ideas that I wanted to do, like weird science. Inner Space came up.
Mm-hmm.
Inner Space, now that's a good one, yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. I watched Inner Space to prep for this podcast until around noon today when I was like, motherfucker! It's Interstellar!
Yeah.
So here I am with tons of Martin Short info when we want to discuss Martin Short and Inner Space.
I'm always down for a good Martin Short
I love
conversation.
Martin Short. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Now
No, that's fine. I actually saw Inner Space at a preview screening, so I saw it before almost anybody.
Oh my God.
Yeah, way back in the late 80s, yeah.
Was that just because you loved sci-fi,
Oh, absolutely. I've always loved sci-fi, but I tried to get on these things, these lists that you get on that people, you fill out the information afterwards. So I got into one of those for Warner Brothers, and I got to see Lost Boys first and Inner Space first.
Wow.
That's pretty sweet.
Lost Boys is my favorite movie.
Whoa.
Can we just talk about that for the podcast?
Yeah, we'll switch. Fuck all my research.
Come on, vampires, cool vampires.
We'll have you guys back, and we will discuss in
Thank
detail
you,
both
Ethan.
films. We'll get into.
Sounds good.
You're very welcome. So before I get into it, I just want to know what you guys thought of the film. Liked the film, loved the film, hated the film. Give it to me.
I did not like the movie.
Okay.
First of all, it's 2 hours and 58 minutes. Not what I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was a lot of stuff going on, even just with the different movie stars in the movie. It was like I felt like I was in different movies at times where it's like Matt Damon's the bad guy. A lot of stuff threw me off, and But I need to say I love Matthew McConaughey. Like,
Sure.
Like I am into anything he does always, but I think I think this is his worst movie he's ever done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, because the movie is bad, or you think he was bad in the film?
No, he's great, but he's doing what he does, which is not sci-fi.
That is true. Okay.
Like all of his
Understood.
rom-coms, like that's what I mean, and everything he's done is great.
Yeah.
But I really feel like this was his worst movie. It didn't seem like he was in this movie. Like he just is not the guy who is like, I'm in space is real. Whatever his voice is.
Yeah, so I got to take the other side on this.
Great.
The length of the movie is a bit
Problematic.
much, yes.
Especially
Pushing
when
it.
you're cramming it.
Yeah.
When you're watching it 2 times at speed.
But no, I mean, the thing about this movie came out, and it has an aspect of it which it's one of these little things that, you know, I will criticize the movie on many fronts, and many of the things you mentioned are appropriate, but there's an aspect of it which a lot of movies, particularly science fiction movies, don't do these days, is that it had this sense of exploration is important. There's one line in the movie which just completely turned me while I was watching it. And, you know, Matthew McConaughey's son has been, you know, criticized for bringing the moon landings into classroom because we don't want to talk about those in the movie anymore, in the movie world anymore, just to make sure that people look down or are concentrating on these sort of very supposedly immediate things. But And afterwards, Matthew McConaughey just says, we used to be explorers. We didn't, you know, and that's the thing, is that exploration is something that's so inherent in humanity and fundamentally just lost in any of the movies or TV shows that we see almost these days. And this was a movie that came out and was like, yes, exploration is important. The fact is, it's not necessarily this is the problem that it will solve, but once you explore, once you push out, you will come to many solutions which you would not have otherwise. Just walking around looking at the front of your feet does not prevent you from walking into the tree.
I love that. That sentiment is beautiful.
That's what I feel about inner space.
Damn it.
Yeah, but look, that's over 30 years ago.
I know.
That's true. Well, we'll still do it. We'll still
okay,
get there. But I do agree. I love that whole, what does he say? We used to look up at the stars.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
wonder, whatever.
Yeah.
No, I would almost say that, like, argue that the character that Matthew McConaughey is playing in the movie is great. It's just like the story itself was very problematic to me. Like, I liked who he was.
Yeah.
And I loved, like, the beginning. I almost thought it was who directed this movie?
Christopher Nolan.
Chris Nolan.
Yeah, it felt like M. Night Shyamalan movie. That's what I almost thought was going to happen in the beginning. It almost reminded me
Twist.
of, like, Signs a little bit. Like, I was like, what is this going to be?
Sure.
It's like an alternate world, but then it just was sort of not that.
I mean, there are twists. I'm going to give you that.
Yeah.
But I think, and I kind of felt the same way. So I'm kind of in between the two of you, I will say, because I didn't dislike the film and I didn't love the film. I kind of felt like it's the prime example of a film that has both. Like, there are certain scenes that are so mesmerizing and so awe-inspiring and so beautiful and emotional. There's like emotional scenes that really did get to me, and then there's other scenes that I find so unnecessary and filler, or just like to make it more mind trippy or something like that, that I thought were completely like
Yeah, and I would
superfluous.
say, like, I would say that I'm not in love with the film, but I like it a lot.
Okay.
But for exactly that reason, because there are things that came along which were like, come on, this was unnecessary, but or it was
Yes.
put in just, you see the hand of the writer and the director come in to make this, you know,
Right.
super more, or, you know,
And
just
literally
turn the
that
dial up.
happened, by the way. I don't know how much you guys are aware of with the history of this film, but Jonathan, what's his name? Nolan. Jonathan Nolan is Christopher Nolan's brother, and he wrote this movie a while, like 2008 or something like that, and Steven Spielberg was supposed to direct it, and it was like a very different film. It had like aliens and Chinese robots, and there was like a lot of stuff.
Well, that's what I thought it was going to
ending
be.
was
Like,
different.
when I first, because I knew nothing about this movie. I clearly thought it was inner space. So,
Right.
So when I first started watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great!" Especially when in like the opening scene when he's driving the car around, he's got the flat tire. And I mean, I don't know if you know much about the science of cars, but I feel like the flat tire alone. Right away, I was like, "Wait a minute! There's a flat tire on a truck, and they're still going like 80. The kids driving
Through
Yeah.
a cornfield.
through a cornfield."
So true. So true.
So right away, I was like, okay, I'm not on board. But
Yeah.
I was sort of waiting for it to be like a crazy alien movie, to be honest. That's what I was hoping for.
You're right. It seemed like it was going there, and instead, Christopher Nolan kind of took over the script and started taking out elements. And you know, again, upon doing research, and I'm sorry to all of those listening that are like crazy geeks about this stuff. I didn't go super deep. Christopher Nolan's a genius. I'm an idiot. All of that.
Yeah.
All of that said, it seemed like
We all love The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Come on, let's all gather around.
I want because I said I don't like this movie. That is my favorite movie, by the way. Besides
Great
Lost
film.
Boys. So
Batman Begins also I loved.
I love Batman Begins too.
I love Memento.
Right.
So let's that. Having said
we're
that,
just trying to deal with the Twitter hate.
yes,
right
exactly.
now.
I'm trying to ease people that are already listening. Like, well, fuck you. You don't know anything. What have you written? So sure. It's more complicated than anything I've written. I get it. But it did seem like he was picking and choosing certain things that I thought were pretty unnecessary. And, like, the ending is very different than how it was originally written. And so I think that's also why, towards the end of the movie, it feels like, well, what the hell's going on here? I don't really understand. It's like a lot all at once. So, anyways.
I do know what he wanted at the time was a 2001 type movie.
Right.
And so in that way, it actually follows that arc. It's actually there are very long and sometimes beautiful, sometimes boring scenes of space.
Yes.
But then the other thing that he wanted was sort of a trippy ending, except for the light show, you have the inside the black hole scene kind of thing. So that's what he did, which I think that works okay in the movie. It is not it's not one of the things that I really like because it sort of diverges from what they were attempting in the beginning.
Absolutely, yeah. I was talking with Sachin, our associate producer here, and we were kind of saying how the movie would have been just like a good, tight space exploration film without certain elements like the whole time-traveling ghost gravity stuff, where it just feels like, what the hell?
Like, what's happening?
Yeah, and why? I don't know. In the original script, it came up that, so, towards the beginning with the flat tire truck sequence, they're trying to get a drone, right? They're hacking, they're following this drone, they're hacking into this drone, they land the drone, they get the drone. The drone has no point in the film. It never comes back. They never talk about the drone again. It was just like a weird chase scene, which was very strange to me.
It was world building. I mean, it was trying to set up what the world was, that certain technology is valuable and so on. But the fact that it never came back
is strange.
It's strange.
So in the original script,
I thought that there was going to be the drone. It was going to be the classic thing where like the drone lands and they're all sort of like worried about what's in there, and then he goes touch it, and it's like, and then it comes out like crazy alien. And it's like Matthew McConaughey and his two kids fighting some alien that came out of a drone.
That sounds
I
great.
want to see that movie.
That sounds great.
That's my kind of movie.
Yeah, especially right off the bat like that. A lot of movies, hit off with a blast.
That's how I direct movies. God damn it.
You can hire Dan Levy at danlevy.com. So
not my website.
The drone. I don't know what your website is. danlevy.net.
danlevyshow.com. But I really don't update it, so it's really not worth going to.
Nobody check that out.
No one check that out. You better follow me on Instagram. That's really my only social media right now. Dan Levy Show.
Dan Levy Show on Instagram.
On Instagram.
If you want to hit him up to direct something.
Exactly. Only. DM, I take all my directing offers through DM.
On Instagram.
Yeah, I take all my DO offers.
No,
DM
so
only.
in the original script, he sends that probe, that drone, back through the wormhole, and it has this gravitational black hole data in it, and it leads them to the NASA facility. So it actually serves the most important purpose in the film, instead of this weird way that they just kind of left it in the movie as this little chase, and then it has no real purpose. And I'm not trying to criticize the film. I know that's not why we're here, but I did have a big problem with that, because his whole finding the what's it called, the Morse code, and then that's how they get the coordinates to NASA, and then he gets there and they ask him about it, and he says well, it's kind of a weird story with this ghost in my daughter's room, and that's how I got here. And they're like, okay, not only are we going to accept that, you're the best pilot we got. Hop on this. It's like, what the hell's going on here? It just seems so ludicrous.
It was definitely a very roundabout way. I mean, but it needed, they're using that to set up the end of the movie.
Sure.
So that wasn't necessary, but you're right, it's very detached from the probe. And
yes, and not to skip around, but completely to skip around.
Matthew McConaughey's sobbing dramatic monologue.
No, I'm not going to get into acting performance here. Love you, Matthew. I know you're listening.
No, he's definitely listening.
But
DM me, Matthew.
But the ending, they tried to make everything fit too much, I thought, which was also unnecessary. They had not only the bookshelf thing where he spells out stay, which he knows doesn't work from a week ago when he left or whatever. But then there's also this scene where he's traveling back through the black hole and he reaches out to touch Anne Hathaway. and that connects to the earlier part in the film. That made no sense to me.
It was. Yeah,
That's what I meant by just the cast being like, who cast this movie? Like
I don't know.
Anne Hathaway and
Damon.
It just seemed like so confusing. You know,
Yeah.
It seemed like call these people, and then they all said yes. Like, oh fuck, we got everyone.
We can't tell them no.
I don't know. Up catering.
I was fine with the casting. It was just those bits were like, okay, well that's nice, but then it was becoming very.
I would have been so much happier if they did not explain how Anne Hathaway had that weird handshake through dimensions or whatever. That it was just them going through a black hole, and it's like, okay, I'll take that. I literally, and I think as the audience, you do accept it when it happens, but then when they explain it, that's where I said that's completely ridiculous. That makes no sense.
Can we like I guess from like a science perspective, like what is a black hole? Like what?
All right, let's get into it. We'll come back.
Yeah, sorry.
No, please. I love
because
it.
we're talking about black holes, so I'm just wondering, like, what is a black hole? So I don't even know.
So the black hole is basically when you have a lot of mass in a very little volume.
Okay.
So that there are two things that define escape velocity from any type of mass. The velocity that you're going away from it, and how far away you start from it. That is, if I'm at the top of, if I'm standing on the Earth and I want to leave the Earth, I need a rocket that'll give me 11 kilometers per second to give me escape velocity. But if I'm on top of Mount Everest or even higher, or a balloon takes me up, then I need less escape velocity because I'm further away from the total mass of the Earth. So if you have a lot of mass, if you make it a lot less dense, so make it a lot bigger, then your escape velocity is lower. But then the opposite, which if you go to the extreme as a black hole, you bring it closer and make it smaller and smaller and smaller, your escape velocity goes higher and higher and higher until you hit the speed of light. That's why it's black. There's no light escapes it, it's black. Our sun, if we could wave a magic wand and compress it to a sufficiently small size, it will be a black hole.
Speaking of small size, I want you this far away from the microphone.
Okay. That far away. Okay.
I thought you were going to make a dick joke. And I was like, oh, man, we're doing that here?
Okay, so
explain to my girlfriend why. No.
Very well. Apologies for that. But so fundamentally, that's the main thing. That's what defines a black hole. How you create the black hole, there's multiple different ways, but the most common way today is when stars explode, which is stranger. It's exploding, it's becoming bigger, and that's what an explosion is. Bits go away. But that actually implodes the center part of the star so that the core collapses underneath its own gravity, and it becomes so small that the escape velocity for that mass is the speed of light. If we could wave a magic wand, we could turn a human being into a black hole. We can turn the Earth into a black hole. Again, we don't have any mechanisms to actually do that, but that's what I want people to take away from it. It's size, it's physical size. The smaller it is, and how much mass you pack into it.
You got that?
That's what a black hole is.
I do. I'm ready for my test.
So you summarize that now for the listener.
Basically, like if you're on Mount Everest and like you want to go super fast, you're closer to the space, so there's less. So you just go faster, and if you go really fast, then it's speed of light, and then you're a black hole.
Yep, I think that's about right.
Okay, well,
something. I don't know.
B minus.
Yeah, B minus. I don't know.
No,
we didn't cover that science as a communication major.
Well, nobody covers this science.
Yeah, it's pretty out there, literally. So the look of the black hole, though, was accurate, according to what I...
Well, pretty accurate. That was the thing. That's what Kip Thorne, who at the time, he was already a very famous physicist at the time, but now he's a Nobel Prize-winning physicist.
He won a Nobel Prize for Interstellar?
Yes, almost. No, but the same kind of work. The idea was that how do you... what are the consequences of these very massive objects throughout the universe, particularly if they're orbiting each other? We didn't get this in the movie Interstellar, but if you have two black holes orbiting each other, they actually create ripples in space, or ripples in space-time.
What do you mean ripples in space?
Literally, space gets shrunk and expanded around them.
Okay.
So think about, if you drop, a pebble in a pond, it creates ripples. Okay. And so he and two other physicists came together and the National Science Foundation in the U.S. funded something basically over nearly 40 years to make this thing called LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, mouthful there, to detect this kind of scrunching of space, which is tiny. But a couple of years ago, that they finally detected as two black holes merged, it sends out intense ripples out in space-time, and we were able to detect it here. And that's what he and his colleagues won the Nobel Prize for. So, like I said, he was already very famous for working a lot on the Einstein's theory of gravity, what's called general relativity. So his advances in general relativity. He's been a professor at Caltech for many decades. He's had many successful students. I was an undergrad there. I chatted with him a couple of times. Not that he would know me.
Rubbed elbows with the kip.
Yeah. But fundamentally, he's a brilliant mind. And so, but that was the thing, is because he'd been thinking about this for a long time, the filmmakers came to him and they talked about it as to what would it look like. And the simulations, I mean, you can go back to the movie The Black Hole in 1979 from Disney. You can see sort of what the general idea of what black holes were then, which was, it's a black hole and then there's stuff swirling in it. And as stuff swirls into it, it heats up so it gets brighter.
Oh.
But this idea of the fact that everybody knew but hadn't put it together, that the fact that the mass is there and that mass bends the light, it bends that disk around it into a shape so that it gives itself a halo. So that's why you see a ring of light around it as well as this disk of material that's flowing into it. Okay. So that simulation to that fidelity had never been done before. And so for the movie, thank you Hollywood for funding science here, basically they actually got that and there's a scientific paper out of it, and you can basically they put out the details of it. So that was accurate. Yeah.
Damn. That's really cool.
Wow. Yeah. I always thought the black hole was just the CIA offices.
Hollywood jokes. Okay, that's fantastic. I do have questions on what you just said as far as two black holes combining. Merging. That's really interesting to me. But I still have
several questions about the movie.
Sorry, that are particular to the film.
I just didn't know what a black hole was.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, some of this is so dumb even that I'm bringing it up in comparison to the brilliant information that we're getting.
He's talking about these awards. I'm like, well, in 2001, I won Funniest College Comedian in America. So just so you know, I'm on par with some black hole scientists.
Hey, I didn't win any awards. You're one up on me.
Okay, good. I want to know I'm winning.
Yeah. No, so far you are definitely leading the way in this room. You are kicking some serious ass, Dan. Okay, so this is just a funny detail that I wanted to just get your insight on. They bring him to their main conference room where they give him all the intel on the different missions, the Lazarus missions and stuff like that. And then as this, to me, very comical reveal, he says, who are you guys? And they're like, you don't know who we are? He's like, no. He's like, we're NASA. He's like, what? What do you mean you're NASA? And then they basically push a button and a wall moves, and then they're in this huge rocket facility.
I know. It was sort of like Men in Black.
Yes. Which is, arguably a comedy, right? I mean, that's an action comedy.
Yeah, it's an action comedy.
And there are jokes in Interstellar, but it's more like, how drama movies use jokes where it's like, okay, let's keep it light here for a little bit. But that seemed like, okay, what kind of movie is this now at this point, right?
Yeah. Exactly. That was how I was feeling the whole time. I mean, basically, it's like I was confused by what was happening, and then anytime they did science shit, I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" And I was hoping there was some sort of M. Night Shyamalan twist where everyone was dead. Yeah. But of course, I didn't even Google the director because I was still mad that I watched Interspace the whole morning.
So wait, just to be clear on something, you watched both films this morning?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fantastic.
I wake up very early. I have young kids.
Yeah, and they were not happy today.
We want to watch Daniel Tiger. No, we're going to watch Interspace, a Martin Short movie from the 80s, and now we're going to watch Interstellar. The worst movie ever for kids.
Yeah, Dave, I'm sure kids hate that
this
film.
This is the future.
Fuck. Slow.
So my daughter would have gotten scared by this movie just from the first scene. So,
yeah, just from the truck.
Yeah. Well, no, just the music. That gets her.
Just that in of itself is enough.
Yeah. Nolan uses the wah a lot.
Well, thankfully, people watch everything on their phones now, and so you can't hear the bass, so that's good.
And my son has this weird thing with Lithgow, so he really freaked out.
Oh, really?
Oh, nice. Yeah. What do you mean a weird thing?
He's scared of him.
He's scared of John Lithgow?
Yeah.
Does he like Shrek? He's in Shrek?
Oh, he doesn't know.
Oh.
I got to tell him.
Break the news.
I will.
So you wouldn't build a rocket facility next to your main conference room?
No. That was definitely one of those things which was very amusing, first of all. It's obvious that NASA has gone underground because it's an organization that, they can't acknowledge exists anymore.
Right.
But the fact that they did that was, ridiculous because when the rocket launches later on, you're like, There are windows there. Those windows.
Everything would get destroyed, right?
Would get destroyed.
It's like every time we launch a rocket, like, call the contractor.
Yeah, I know.
Shit.
Damn it, time to renovate.
But that was, you could even say, let's say it's a one-time launch. You don't have a lot of space. You're going to do everything there. Then you're going to have your launch. But then it destroys everything because, you're NASA, you're trying to hide. You don't have.
Yeah.
But no, they're back there all the time.
All the time.
Say afterwards.
Also, when it launches, won't people be like, hey, I think something's going on?
Yeah.
I just saw a rocket leave what I'm pretty sure is NASA.
I don't know, but
But for the movie geeks out there, of course, and what made it even less believable for if you have lived in LA and have visited the Bonaventure Hotel in downtown, that's the central area of the Bonaventure Hotel in downtown LA.
Really?
Yes.
whoa, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, go look. They have these sort of little elliptical projections that are there, and they're covered up with stuff.
Yeah.
That's where they're where the cycle. That's their gym area. So there are cycles there, so you can just cycle out there, and it's all very circular. The Bonaventure Hotel is these multiple cylinders together as a
so
hotel.
funny.
Go there, see it. That's what they have there. So it was a double whammy for me. I'm like, they have a rocket in the center of the Bonaventure Hotel.
Just took you out of it completely. That's where I stay with my family. Hey, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. You and I never hear people say that when they relax, they like to hold up their arms in front of their face or just in front of them. They like to hold out their hands for an hour at a time or 2 hours. But then again, that's what we're all doing when we read a book. That's right. You have to hold up this thing, and every now and then you have to turn a page, and the paper makes a sound. Everybody hates it. I'm not telling you not to read. Reading is very important, but what I am telling you to do is get Audible. That way, you can just listen to books. You can lay down. You can be in your car. You can be on a train. You could be on a bus. You could be on a weird bus train that is a very, very long bus that's on a track, which I guess you would just call a train. The point is, Audible is great, guys. It's a great sidekick if you're hiking, running, enjoying the outdoors, or indoors in a bathtub. Don't put it in the bathtub, obviously. Have it nearby. Anyways, speaking of Interstellar, they have The Science of Interstellar, which is by Kip Thorne, which you can listen to, and it takes 7 hours. It's a little bit less than 7 hours, and in that time, you'll understand all the science of Interstellar, which I can't begin to understand. So definitely check that out. You can get it on your phone, you can get it on a tablet, you can get it on your Amazon Echo, and you can get a 30-day trial and your first audiobook free if you just go to where do you go? You go to audible.com/badscience. Or you text bad science to 500-500. Okay? That's Audible, AUDIBLE.com/bad science. All spelled out. You know how to do it. You're very, very smart. You can spell the word bad and the word science. So come on, get Audible. Seriously, right now, take it out. You don't have Audible, and you want it. So try it out for a month, and you're going to love it. You're going to say, I can't live without it anymore. Thank you so much, Bad Science. So if you're asking, how can I read all these books I want to read? Well, you can do it with audiobooks. I also want to tell you about Keeps. Keeps is the best way to keep your hair. If you're losing your hair, then you want to use Keeps before it gets any worse. You got to use it early. That's the whole deal with Keeps. It helps you keeps your hairs. So if you're bald already, like my father, David Esteban, then you don't need Keeps, okay? Papi, if you're listening, don't call me and ask me, oh, Eitan, maybe I'll use some of those Keeps. What's the coupon code again? What do I put? No, okay? David Esteban, you don't need Keeps. It's too far gone. You're too late. You're bald. Deal with it. But for people like me who still have our hair and, we're worried about where it's going, then let's keep it. Hair today, hair tomorrow. That's part of their whole slogan here at Keeps. Look, guys, I'm not going to mess with you. I just turned 30 and I'm getting older and I know that my hair is not going to last forever. So I'm glad I have Keeps as a solution. That's perfect for me. Maybe it's perfect for you also, and you can Keeps all your hairs. So to receive your first month of treatment for free, go to keeps.com/badscience. That's Keeps, KEEPS.com/badscience. Okay, that's a free month of treatment at keeps.com/badscience. I don't want to rush you, but there's no reason to put this off any longer. Okay, you got to stop your hair loss. It's going every day, a little bit more, a little bit more. Slow that process down with Keeps.
the break is over. Here we go, back to the show about science.
Okay, so here's another one that I thought was silly, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Yeah. So when they're in the what do they call it? The spinning spaceship that they're in, exploration, or it has some name like that. Whatever. They're
Endurance.
Endurance. Thank you so much. So they're in the Endurance, and while they're hanging out, it has to spin so that they have the right amount of gravity in there, I think. Yeah. But because it's spinning, we see out the windows everything spinning around, but they're just kind of sitting there chilling out. And every about 10 seconds, they get blinded by the sun. Yeah. And they're just talking or like watching movies from their family or whatever, and it's just really bright onto their face. And I just thought, that's a simple solution. A curtain.
A curtain would have been fine. Hey, everyone put your sunglasses on because that whole sun thing's happening every 5 seconds.
Every about 9 seconds, we're going to get blinded. It seems so inconvenient.
It also seems like wouldn't if you're that close, if the sun is coming at you that strong, wouldn't it blind you?
No, I mean, you're no further. I mean, it's the same as the Earth. I mean, they're not when they start off. They start off at the distance of the Earth and then they go away. So it's going to get fainter and fainter and fainter as they go further away.
I just thought it was so funny because it's like obviously they're trying to show us that they're spinning. Yeah. But it just seems like nobody on set was like, "Hey, don't you think this is dumb that we're just getting blinded all the time?"
When you're driving and you put down your little thing to block the sun, it doesn't really work. You're like, motherfucker!
Yeah, it's like you're just constantly moving it for no reason.
A little bit this way, a little bit that way, a little bit.
They're already spinning. I mean, how annoying would it be to also get hit by the sun?
Well, there's that, but the other part of it is I don't know how well they did, and they may have done the velocity on this one fairly well, but it was like, that's a very fast spin. You want the thing to be big enough so you don't get sick as you're spinning. And maybe, they just skipped everybody got sick and got used to it, but generally you want it to be a larger radius so the spinning rate to give you the gravity isn't that high.
Right.
I was like, that seems a little bit high. That's more like a roller coaster spin.
Yeah. It just seems so funny to me that they took clearly so much time. Kip Thorne, they brought in these scientists, physicists, and they get so much right about black holes, and then you have these little nobody thought, come on, what are you doing?
It'd be funny if at the end they walked out of it and there was a photo of them like you get at
Here's a photo of every 10 seconds you're on this spaceship.
They don't need those flash things either. We just waited for the sun to come through the window to take the picture.
McConaughey looking all upset
So ridiculous. Okay, so a few other ones, then we'll get into this legit science stuff because I do have some good questions, I promise.
Me too.
Okay, great. So when at the end he sees his daughter and she's really old, and they tell him that because she's really old, there was some difficulty transferring her to the station that he's at. Yeah. But he's young and a pilot, and why couldn't he transfer stations? That was my question there. She is about to die. I mean, she sees him and she's going to die very soon. And yet, I don't know. I thought that was really, really silly. It would be easy for him to just hop over.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, that was that was a plot point that I was willing to let it go. I mean,
right. It was hard for me, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah, so it's the kind of thing where you're meeting up with a friend for lunch or to write or why don't you come to my place? But if you're really old and about to die, I'm going to drive to your place. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of dick.
Yeah, what an asshole.
Yeah, pretty asshole-ish. Okay, so they go to this first planet. First of all, they don't have a clear plan, which I thought was also hilarious, that they're deciding what the plan is as they're in space.
Yeah, it seems like there should have been more prep work.
Well, that was the thing. That's exactly. I mean, come
improvising.
On. If you're going to say you're NASA, and believe me, the one thing that we do at NASA is plan.
I mean, was that insulting for you? I felt insulted. I've never really planned anything in my life. I'm barely prepped for this.
Me too. I'm not prepped for this. I watched the wrong movie.
You're doing great. You don't need to be prepped. You could have came in here blind, and I think you do a great job.
No, but I do feel like when you're watching the movie, you're like, this seems really last minute. You know, it's it feels like there should have been a whole scene where it's a blackboard scene where it's here's the plan, and get all this stuff.
If this doesn't work, we'll do this plan, and if this doesn't work, we're gonna do
instead get on the ship. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Yeah, it was immediately get to the ship.
But that was the thing, is that they're also making decisions that they're not qualified to make. That is, this is the information that we're getting based on flora, fauna, whatever they've detected. which one is the better planet? You want a team of people,
Yep.
not just 4 astronauts or 5, however many it was, just
Including the robot TARS.
Yeah, to do that. So that part of it was like, okay, it creates more dramatic tension. I understand that part of it, but at the same time, it's definitely one of those things where I'm like, you should have sort of thought of this before. Which planet you go to first seems like a sort of a big deal.
A big deal, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was, so glad to hear you say that because totally took me out of the film in that moment. It just seems so ridiculous. Like, they're looking at little screens with the planets on it and being like, the pros and cons of these, this one's further away, but this one's close by, but whatever. And then he turns it around and he has this little whiteboard because then they start talking about one of my biggest problems in the film, which was this time dilation issue. So, and feel free to, get on it and tell me what's what. But from what I understand, they choose, for what the hell ever reason, to go to this planet which is closest to the black hole, where every hour is 7 years in Earth time.
And just to go over it again,
Not
a
in Earth
black
time.
hole is like if you're on Mount Everest and like you're trying to go super fast, but then there's not enough time, and then it's light speed.
Yeah. So we all know what that is.
Yeah, you're with me on this. I'm basically a scientist.
The audience is lucky they can't see our
Well,
faces.
it's 7 years in the time of the spaceship, not 7 years on Earth.
Right. Excuse me.
So, but that's the basic thing of
The time. Yeah.
Go
But
ahead.
those are similar, right? I mean, the time spent on Earth is still
It's going to be longer, yes.
Yes.
So longer still. That is,
Okay.
obviously they're trying to not have it be so many, a huge amount of dilation. But
Right.
that's one of the reasons why planning is important,
Yep.
is because you can actually say, literally beforehand, because you know where the distances are, and time passes differently next to any massive object. So if you're next to the surface of the Earth, your watch, compared to an astronaut in space, runs slower. By a tiny fraction. It's only at the extremes of a black hole where it becomes such a big deal.
Right.
But those are the kinds of calculations you want to do way beforehand, so
Yeah.
you know exactly, how 1 minute on this planet is how many minutes on the spaceship versus based on where the spaceship's orbit
It
is.
seems like that would be the last resort as well.
Yeah,
To go
yeah.
to that planet. Like, why waste time going there?
Unless it is the best possible option, which afterwards they figure out, oh my God, the person died.
Right.
And because of time dilation, we only got the very first burst of information, which looked good. It's
Right.
like, well, okay. You
Maybe
should have
think
sort
about
of
that.
known that.
Yeah, for more than 9 seconds. So ridiculous to me. And this guy, the one of the astronauts, just very instantaneously decides, like, actually, if you guys are going down there for a few years, that would be good for me because I have some research I got to do anyways.
Well, he's doing the calculations which they should have done before.
Right, for years. Yeah.
But separately, I meant to say this, but you guys are kind of talking about a lot of stuff here. The timeline in general in the movie is weird. Like, I felt like I didn't know how long he was gone for. I thought it was weeks, and it was the whole that part of the movie also confused me.
It's very confusing.
Like, how long was he gone for?
Was who?
McConaughey.
Oh, McConaughey. Well, he and the other astronauts.
I think it's shot for 8 months. No, I don't know.
I'm saying, like, what was the days?
No. They said basically they were on the surface for about 45 minutes.
Right. But it felt like it felt much longer to me.
Yeah. So and so the time that's passing on the spaceship for the other guy is 20 some years basically.
Right, yeah. He said when they got back on that it was like 23 years. And I thought it was so dumb that they went there at all. But so the decision to go is one that will plague me forever. I really can't stand that they went down there. I can't stand that they didn't talk about it. I can't stand that he thought it was a good idea, the other astronaut, that he's going to stay on. Then they go down there. That other dude dies. He just gets like hit by a wave of water and just, he's dead now.
He's at the spaceship. He doesn't get in.
Yeah, he's right there.
And then the robot brings Anne Hathaway's
Hathaway.
character in.
Yes.
Who was jeopardizing her astronaut colleagues
Yes,
by not going there.
going for the info or whatever.
You would just not do that. That is just not done.
And the ultimate point here for me is that mankind is on the brink of devastation.
Yeah.
And so if they get marooned on this planet for a few hours, which is like, that's totally plausible. If you're going into a planet, you might spend some time there. Then everyone's dead. Everyone on Earth is just instantaneously dead. And that's the plan A. That's their main thing that they're trying to do is save the world.
Yeah.
So, okay. crazy dumb. We can all agree it's not just me saying it.
Yeah.
I got a NASA scientist here. I got
And
JPL.
And me.
And I got Dan Levy, the guy who's won the most awards,
at the table.
saying that that's stupid.
The most science comedy awards.
Which we should start handing out, I feel like.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
We should start.
We're going to get one today.
All right, so let's also talk about white holes, which they don't really talk about in the film, but I
Careful.
did. I'm not but I did come across it in some of the research, and I just wanted to know the difference between a black hole and a white hole.
Okay, so the concept of a white hole was that
See, there was an election.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton.
I knew it. At some point, there was going to be
No, the idea is that if all this matter is going into one location, then presumably, or there's one idea was that this would be a tunnel to someplace else, and where all this stuff is coming out would be your white hole, where all this superheated stuff that's going in on one end is now coming out on the other end.
You're saying that a white hole is attached somehow to a black hole?
Well, the idea was, and this is separately, which is so. There's the idea of a wormhole which they use, connects one point of space with another point of space.
Yes,
and so the idea was that effectively all black holes are also wormholes, so that it's all this mass that goes in that falls
That's the
into
idea, or we know that that's the case?
Well, for what we know is we have very good evidence that black holes exist. We have no evidence that white holes exist. And
no evidence that white holes exist.
There's stuff coming out of a similar kinds of situation.
Okay, so that's theoretical.
That was theoretical, and I'm pretty sure that's. There's nobody who really subscribes to it these days. Originally, very early on in the concept of black holes, people sort of played around with the idea, but I think it fundamentally...
And wormholes?
And wormholes, that was actually something that was conjectured by Einstein originally, having to do with this theory. And he and another scientist named Rosen, they came up with it, and it's called an Einstein-Rosen bridge.
Oh, I've eaten their bagels.
With cream cheese or salmon flavor?
Both.
Okay, good.
I do a whole thing.
They do a good job.
I like egg salad.
But yeah, no. But the main thing was that this is the idea of bridge. I mean, they have the whole thing with punching a hole and going from.
Right,
you don't have to travel from point A to point B. You sort of on the surface of the Earth. You sort of tunnel through the Earth, and that's the idea of tunneling.
But
through
so
space.
Wormholes are still though.
Wormholes are fundamentally, and this was actually Kip Thorne was very much involved with this because. In the movie Contact, which was based on Carl Sagan's book, when Carl Sagan was writing that book, he didn't want warp speed, light speed, and all these sort of hyperspace kinds of things. He said, "What is there a way of making wormholes work physically?" And Kip Thorne and students worked on it and came up with a way initially, but over time they've come to the conclusion that it's not likely that to naturally ever occur.
Okay.
Really? So there's no real wormholes.
There's no real wormholes, and because it actually. There's a cascade of things eventually which leads to the whole time travel thing where you go and kill your grandma and so on.
Right,
so
right.
It actually allows that to happen.
That's the first thing any of us would do if we were time traveling.
Of course. I don't know about this guy. Like when you want to kill your grandma? That's the one. His one idea.
I should have asked for your credentials.
Yeah, exactly.
Who the hell is
He's not a scientist. He just kills people's grandmas. If you want your grandma killed, contact Ethan. And if you want me to direct a movie, you find me on Instagram.
Show.
You DM me and I make a movie. You DM him and he kills your grandma. Anyways, back to wormholes.
Yeah, well, let's walk it back to the Future, where you accidentally prevent your parents from meeting. But that's the sort of kind of thing. But yeah, that's so it sort of violates that. But still, so naturally it can form. Then the idea is whether you can have it unnaturally form when some alien civilization, which was what they talked about in the movie. This is no longer something natural, that something has to be created. But I still don't know how they got around the Back to the Future angle of it at this point. But but fundamentally, that's a wormhole. There's separate from that as a black hole, and then the idea was that the black hole could be a wormhole, and where stuff is going in one end, the other end that it comes out would be a white hole. But the white hole idea is really just
that's out there.
Passe, yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you about this now. The whole point of the film is to find another home for humans. That Earth is not going to survive. We need another place to go. Is there another place that we can go? Do you know of it? Do you think that we'll get there?
No. First of all, I mean. This brings me to a couple of the other problems with the movie.
Okay, great. Let's destroy it.
First of all, and I was not the first to bring this up, is that the movie is called Interstellar. Generally, we use the words interstellar to travel between stars, but they specifically say in the movie this is another galaxy. So it should be called intergalactic, first of all.
Wow.
Wow, but Interstellar sounds better.
It sounds better. Okay,
Yeah.
so we go. But
I hate that.
But the
That's
other,
so messed up. They did that.
yeah, I know. I'm
Just
like,
like
where was
it's-
Kip?
Yeah,
was Kip on the
should have
title?
said something.
But that was the thing. I was like, why make you that you're going to a different galaxy? Why not? But the main thing is that I think the black hole at the center of our galaxy is not sufficiently large enough, so they have to go to another galaxy to have a sufficiently large black hole, and that's why it needs to be so big. Is my sense is why they did that.
Okay.
But at the same time, it was like, okay, so that's one thing. But in terms of finding another planet that we can live on, presumably, again, these aliens or us from the future, which is what at the end of the movie it turns out to be, is that they're sending they've put the wormhole there to take you to the most likely candidates.
Right.
Why candidates? Why not just put it towards something that they know we can live on?
Oh my God, great
Yeah.
point. Didn't even think about
At that point, I mean, you've spent so much time not planning. At least,
exactly. You
at
don't
least
need to
get
plan.
there and be like, no, everyone come here. This is the place to go.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Also, the work it must take to make this wormhole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe that they wouldn't just lead you directly to a sustainable planet.
But really, what we're trying to get to is what are your thoughts on aliens?
Oh, no, I mean,
And for real, they're out there.
for real, they have to be out there.
They do, yeah. It would be too selfish for us to think that we're the only people here podcasting.
There's got to be other
gotta
podcasts.
be.
gotta
Oh my
be
God,
other
an alien
podcasts.
podcast.
Yeah, but the main thing is that if you just look at it statistically, we look in the universe, on Earth, everything. There's never one of something. We don't have just a tree or a fish or a star or
Or a comedian.
or a comedian. The thing is, when the conditions are right, nature replicates itself over and over and over and over and over again. It's not, it's not just one. There could be rarer things, but there aren't things that we've ever found. Okay, this is it. That's the only one.
Yeah.
Not on Earth. Nothing that we've looked at in space. Everything that we found has another one of it, and so on and so forth.
I
So-
mean, you even see it with Starbucks.
Yeah,
Thank
oh
you,
my
thank you,
God.
thank you, thank you.
Dan Levy Show.
Follow me. I got shows like all over the country.
Yeah, I had to quote Contact, which you mentioned before. There's a great line where she says, "No, I think her dad says it.
Her
or
dad
something,
says
where
it.
it's like that'd be an awful waste of space. Isn't
yeah,
that what it
yeah,
is?
yeah, it was. And
If they didn't exist.
Yeah, that's the thing. So the probability is very high that there are other life forms, or what level are they intelligent life forms, and so on. We'll eventually, hopefully, find out. Hopefully, in my lifetime. But
Yeah.
that's
That would be amazing if there's another planet. Just like people are very dumb. They're not as fully intelligent, but they're just around. It's like, hey, welcome to our planet.
well. Now
Want to check out our Varoujan? Oh, man, really? That's it? That's what you got?
Yeah, we sell burgers. You want a burger?
Interspace just came out. Damn it.
But you've actually
They're basically like 80s, but just 80s. It's just
Yeah.
everything from the 80s.
But I like that planet. I love the 80s.
Yeah,
But
that'd be cool.
you've just stumbled onto something else, which is called
Thank you,
the
I'm a scientist.
Fermi paradox. Is that if you do the numbers, though, in terms of life evolving and so on. So you just do statistics. Okay, how many stars are there in our galaxy? How many of those are likely to have planets? How many of those are likely to be in a habitable zone? How many of them evolve bacterial life? How many of those evolve to something more complicated? How many of those develop technologies? How many of those develop technologies that communicate with other planets? And how many of them develop space travel, and then from space travel and so on? But once you get to a certain point, once you have space travel, even though the distances are enormous, at some point, if you can just make the leap to your nearest star, and then over time, just because the galaxy is billions and billions of years old, you will basically the galaxy should be overrun by intelligent spacefaring creatures.
Right.
And the Fermi paradox is that if you just do that over the age of the galaxy, where are all these aliens? And it's an interesting paradox, and you can do various Google searches on. There's some very good videos about.
What's the paradox called? One more time?
Called the Fermi paradox. It's named after Enrico Fermi, who's another very famous physicist, and he.
Enrico.
Yeah, but yeah, Fermi was posited this, and it's really one of those things that I do really believe that there are aliens out there. But this is a real issue, and talking about how dumb people can be, whether it's us or some aliens, is that what could keep aliens from overrunning the universe. And one of the things is that they tend to get to a technological state where they destroy themselves.
Right.
There's some point of either evolution, that you get hit by an asteroid constantly or often enough like the dinosaurs did, and there's no survivors as opposed to the little mammals that became us.
Right.
Or that at some point...
I thought God made us.
A lot of people have faith that was the case.
2,000 years ago or something? Isn't that right?
But we are here. So,
Wow. So that's pretty dark.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next time.
No, I mean,
wait.
but I almost think, like, what if there is this other galaxy far, far away where there is actual, like, it's like this, like, peaceful world, and they came to, like, Earth, and they're like, these fucking people all hate each other. What is this fucking place? Everyone's killing each other all the time.
Yeah.
Let's go back to our place. They just came over, checked it out, like, hovered
I mean,
for a little
that's got to
bit.
be possible.
And there's like, you know what? This is not for us.
Yeah, that could very well be possible. I mean, that's the one thing is that why do we assume, and this was also mentioned in Contact, why do we assume the aliens want to contact us? Maybe maybe they have overrun the galaxy, except they're like, just tiptoe next to Earth. We don't want to talk to these people.
Yeah, don't get over there.
Yeah, or there's the whole Prime Directive thing from Star Trek where you want to let them evolve to a certain point, or that fundamentally once you have to evolve to a certain point where you can actually communicate, and it's not radio telescopes or the kinds of communications that we're familiar with. We'll discover something else, and there's huge numbers of aliens all going and communicating.
I kind of like this.
Yeah, I feel like it's like aliens coming to Earth is sort of like when we go to like a Trader Joe's and you're like driving around, there's all this shitty parking. You're like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not even going in.
Get out of here.
That is what aliens do when they come to Earth.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? This is just not for us. The Earth is basically like an annoying Trader Joe's parking lot.
Yeah.
That is full of violence and murder and insanity.
And some jokes. And
of course.
And some
and
nice-
Jash.
And Jash is there, and that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Oh,
there's some nice blue oceans.
Jash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's true. There's some ponds. And some
ponds
little,
and,
it rains.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
Ariana Grande.
Ariana Grande's walking around getting a, what's it called, kombucha?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to talk about a different science thing, which isn't a physics science thing, which is another issue that I had in terms of bad science.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to try and fix a blight than get the entire population of the planet to leave the Earth, to go through a wormhole, to go to a black hole around which is a new planet.
I can't even get people, like, I had a hard time going to Koreatown to your show the other night. I can't imagine, like, hopping into a wormhole to escape. I'll be like, you know
no
what?
one's gonna wanna do that.
I'll deal with this dusty winds or whatever the fuck's going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've researched a little bit the Dust Bowl, which happened in the 30s, which they like based a lot of this off.
But no, apparently the people who were talking about the Dust Well, they were actually survivors of the Dust Bowl. They were kids then. So they were talking to people who lived through the Dust Bowl, if I remember correctly.
Wow, that's cool.
That did seem terrible.
Yeah. No, it was, yeah.
That seemed horrific.
Yeah. Okay, so now I kind of like the movie.
We're back on board.
We're back on board, Christopher. It seemed like there was, I mean, at least nowadays, a much easier technological solution at hand to kind of fix the crops. Like, that was their main problem, right?
Yeah.
We're running out of food.
Well, yeah, they're running out of food, and that the different kinds of this, whatever this blight is starting to generate more and more nitrogen because it likes nitrogen and feeds on nitrogen. Of course, you know, it's displacing the oxygen creating plants, and so that's bad. So here are a couple of potential things. One is that you spend your resources to fix that. And also, or if you're from the future, which apparently all that information about gravity and everything was coming from the future.
Yeah.
Why don't you just send the solution to the blight?
Oh, save the Earth.
And save the Earth again.
Wow.
It's much simpler.
Great call.
And in terms of, you asked earlier, are there other planets that we know of that there's life on? No, right now this is it. So guess what?
Let's focus on this one.
Yeah, let's focus on this one. Make sure we take care of it. But then if something's going wrong, we'd better damn well try and fix it. And it's like, okay, never mind. We're just going to let it go and have a secret space program so that we go to another.
Which we're going to explode every time we launch a rocket.
Yeah, exactly. Terrible plan. Again, I think the takeaway from this movie is these guys do not know how to plan anything.
Yeah. More planning. Think about the Earth.
Yeah.
These are the lessons of Interstellar, which they didn't want to teach us, but that's what we're getting out of it.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Nolan.
And if you're listening right now and you think like, oh, we don't have to do much, we'll find another place to live, that is not true.
No.
Please.
No, yeah,
Save the oceans.
Recycle,
guys.
Well, everything, this is an everything kind of solution. There's nothing, we don't know what is going to be the most important thing to do. There are certain things that we know about climate change and so on, but
So wait, climate change is
wait a minute. So you
real?
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
so you don't think God made us, and you also believe in climate change? Who is this guy?
I again did not check.
I'm definitely on the agnostic side of the spectrum, but but the idea of that when you're talking about, fundamentally how you take care of the earth. You have a lot of Christians and other religions who are perfectly in line with taking care of the planet.
Yeah.
So there's only one group that seems to be very much inclined against that. So.
Yeah, and they're all rich,
And
which is weird. That's a weird thing they have in common.
Yeah, I know.
I guess they can afford air conditioning.
Bastards. Okay, well, since we're now not on such a dark topic as there's nothing else out there. What was that paradox again called?
Fermi paradox.
Fermi paradox. That'll be it for us. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm going to get this name so wrong.
Go for it.
Varoujan?
Very close. Varoujan.
Varoujan.
Yeah.
Varoujan. Oh, I gotta
Varoujan.
get to my Roujan.
You gotta get your Varoujan. Come on. His wife, Allison, she gave us what to do.
Did you say the name of your wife?
Yeah.
I
Man.
remember. Thanks.
Come on.
You're destroying right now. All right. Well, no, seriously. Thank you so much. And if there's anything you guys want to let the audience know about that's coming up, anything you want to plug or a launch that you have coming to let people know, I don't know.
A rocket launch?
Hey, listen, man, we got scientists in here
do.
that are like, hey, 2 days from now we're launching stuff to Mars. But look out.
I'm not launching any rockets. I'm doing a bunch of stand-up dates. So I think I'm going to Wilmington, Delaware, June 2nd. If that's out now, I'm not sure if you'll
Not sure.
be here. But I'm just, you go on my Instagram and you can see I'm doing stand-up around LA.
Okay, got the dates.
At Dan Levy Show.
Dan Levy Show on Instagram.
Yes.
Got it.
And recent launches from NASA, particularly from JPL, is the Mars Insight lander.
That's right.
It's going to be landing on Mars at the end of this year, and it'll basically be doing seismology on Mars, sort of to study the interior of Mars.
Yeah, I heard about that. They're like studying Mars quakes.
Mars quakes, yeah. And then there's a launch, which, of course, when people are listening to it, it's today, but then it will be
in the past.
In the past,
Yeah.
This whole time thing with Interstellar. But no, so today was the GRACE follow-on was launched. So GRACE is the Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment. It's these two spacecraft that orbit the Earth, and based on the density of the material, what mass is underneath them, they basically, if they're coming up on masses, something that's more massive, one of them gets stretched further. So by just measuring the distances between those two spacecraft, you can measure the mass of the Earth. So that's the gravity recovery part. But what's the climate experiment? And it's one of the coolest ideas is the mass of the Earth isn't evenly distributed because water isn't evenly distributed. It evaporates. Northern hemisphere winter, you get a mass of snow on top. Southern hemisphere winter, then you have snow and then less snow, ice in the northern hemisphere. So you literally are following the entire water cycle as it changes between northern and southern hemispheres in summer and winter. So this was the GRACE mission, which was done previously, and this is the GRACE follow-on that is now starting to pick up where it left off. And so in terms of, just pure evidence as to climate change.
Yeah.
This you can see we followed for 15 years and we're seeing more and more mass in the liquid oceans and less mass in the ice. So that's not good.
Whoa, terrible. Okay, so we are ending on a dark note.
Ending on a bad note.
Dark note, but this is it.
Are you doing anything?
This is fixable.
It
Is
is
there
fixable?
anything like going on, like figuring out like the comedy scene of Mars? Like what's like who's booking that?
I
Is
don't
there a
know.
UCB up there
Is there a Dynasty typewriter
on Mars?
being developed on Mars?
Yeah, I hope so.
No, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, what good is it if when we send people there and there's no laughter?
I know. Come on.
It's true. It's up to us.
I need to be the first comedian on Mars. I will be the first comedian to bomb on Mars.
I mean, you're all about winning awards. I feel like
Come
that'll
on.
get you something.
Hey, Elon Musk wants to go there. He's in LA. Just call him up.
Elon Musk needs to start to focus just on getting everyone's cars and not going to space. Because I feel like there's so many people who are like waiting for their cars, and he's like, "I'm in space." They're like, "Finish the cars,
Cars
Elon.
first.
Cars first, space second."
Make the Tesla affordable. Then let's get out there. Oh, that's great. All right. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank
I had
you.
a great time. I hope we meet again. I hope we do this
Certainly
again.
enjoyed it. Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, of course.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next time on Bad Science.
All right, bye.
Bye. Bad Science is hosted and produced by me, Ethan Edinburgh. Our associate producers are Brent Butler and Sachin Medhecker, and the executive producer is Brett Kushner. Really want to turn on your computer but don't have any reason to do so? Send us an email. badscience@seeker.com. You can tell us about a movie you'd like us to do or just give us your thoughts. And that's precisely what the very cool Tanner Manasco did. He emailed us asking to do Interstellar, and here we are doing Interstellar. So thanks for that. And another nice thing you can do is rate and review the podcast. That helps other people find out about us, which we really appreciate. And that's it. I promise. No more tasks. See you later.